Simon Says subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive notifications.
In this section of the course, we're going to talk about track changes. And track changes are pretty much what they say on the tin. They allow you to track any changes that you're making to a document. And track changes are particularly prevalent in certain industries, and the one that springs to mind is the legal industry. Sometimes it's really important to be able to see any changes that are made to a document and who has made those changes. Once the changes have been made, you can then make a decision if you want to accept those changes and have them become part of the document or reject the changes. So let's take a look at how they work. Now you'll find your tracking options on the review ribbon in the tracking group just here. And the first button I want to draw your attention to is the big old track changes button just here. Now this is one of those two-way buttons, and what I mean by that is that you can click on the bottom half to get a set of options, or you can click on the top half simply to turn track changes on. And you'll notice as I hover over this button, there is a keyboard shortcut to quickly turn track changes off and on of Control, Shift and E. And if we take a look at the screen tip, it says this will keep track of changes made to this document. This is especially useful if the document is almost done and you're working with others to make revisions or give feedback. So let's elaborate on that a little more. So maybe I have this document that we've been working on. I've pretty much finished. It's in the state that I want it to be in, but maybe I want other colleagues to review this and make any changes that they feel are necessary. So I might send this to a colleague down the hallway. They can read through this document, and if they find something they want to change, they can use track changes in order to do that. Once they've made their changes, they can then send the document back to me. I can review the changes, and I can choose to either accept the change or reject the change. So if I click the top half of this button, it's going to put me into track change mode. Essentially, I have track changes turned on. And we can see that because the track changes button is highlighted in grey. And if I want to have an indication of whether I have track changes turned off or on in the status bar, I can right click my mouse down here and make sure that I have track changes turned on. So I can now see at the bottom, track changes are on in case I was in any doubt. If I click on this button again, it's going to turn track changes off. So let's turn it back on and let's pretend that this is a document that I've received from somewhere else. So I'm reviewing this document, I'm going through it, and I can go in and I can start to make my change. So maybe I say, you know what, actually, we don't need this person's name in here. So I'm going to say delete. Now, where I've deleted that word, notice in the margin, I now have this red line to show me that a change has been made. Now, you might like to have that. It's a little bit more discreet, and this is known as simple markup. So anytime you make a change, you're going to get a colored line in the margin to show that a change has been made. Now, if you don't like that, what you could do is in the tracking area, change it from simple markup, and I'm going to say all markup. And this is actually going to show me the word, but the word has a strike through to show that this has been deleted. And I actually prefer to work in this view. I find it a little bit less confusing. And you can see as we hover over it, it says who's made the change, the date and time they made the change, and also what they did. So it says deleted Deborah Ashby. So it makes it very, very clear. What about if I go down to here and I think, actually, we need to add a website address in here. So please add a website address. Once again, when I hover over, it says that this has been inserted. And I can carry on going through the document. So maybe I decide that we don't need this paragraph at all. We want to delete that, and it's going to mark it up. Now, if I was to then send this document on to another colleague and they come through here and start to make changes, their changes are going to show in a different color. So it really is dictated by whoever has the document open at that time. And I'm going to show you in another lesson later on in this section how you can do things like change the color that you're using and how you view changes made by other people. But currently, as I go through, every change I make is in red. Insertions are underlined, deletions have a strike through, and we can tell the difference by hovering over, and we can see if they were deleted or if it was an insertion. Now currently we're looking at all markup, so it's going to show us everything, and we've seen what simple markup does. It just makes the track changes a little bit more discreet down in the margin. But we could choose to view our document with no markup, which makes it really hard to see what's been inserted or deleted. Or we can choose to look at the original document. So if I do that, you can see that Deborah Ashby is back in there and we don't have that text that I inserted. So you can flip between these different views if you want to see what your document's going to look like, if you were to accept all changes, or if you want to go back to the original. Now I'm going to keep mine as all markup. Now underneath here, we can also choose what markup we want to show for. So for example, if I was to add a comment, that is going to show as a track change. So let's do that. If I was to click just here and let's just add a quick comment, I'm going to say new comment. I'm just going to say, please change this word. This effectively shows as a track change. Insertions and deletions will show as a change. Any formatting changes I make, so if I want to make this word bold, you can see that that is going to show in the comments pane, effectively a track change. Now we have a balloons option just here. So I can choose to show all revisions in a balloon, all revisions in line, or only comments and formatting in balloons. So if you recall, we added a comment and we changed the formatting. And those are showing in this pane down the side. And this is what we refer to as balloons. They don't really look like balloons. They look more like, I guess, text boxes. But this is the balloons option. So currently, it's only going to show like this for any comments I add or any formatting changes I make. But what I could do is I could change all revisions to show in balloons. So now you can see it's added in there the fact that I've deleted my name, and further down I've deleted this entire paragraph, so on and so forth. Or alternatively, I can show all revisions in line. So that means that I don't get those balloons at the side, I just see those changes in the document. So it's really up to you how you want to show your track changes in your document. And if you have multiple people reviewing this document, you can even go to specific people and you can choose which reviewers' changes you're interested in. So I have mine set to all reviewers. Currently that's only me, and I'm seeing all of the changes that are made. If other people have made changes, you're going to be able to see all of their names in there. And if you're not interested in a particular person's changes, you can simply deselect them from here to skip over them. So that's how the basics of track changes work. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how you can accept and reject changes. In the previous lesson, we added some track changes to our document. And in this lesson, I'm going to show you how you can go through, review your changes, and then choose if you want to accept or reject that change. So again, imagine that these changes have been made by someone else, and I'm now going through and seeing if I want to accept these into the document. Now, you can just scroll through the document and look at all of the changes and go through each one. Or alternatively, you do have access to a reviewing pane. So this is in some ways a little bit similar to the navigation pane that we looked at earlier in the course. So again, if we go to the tracking group and click the drop down next to reviewing pane, we can choose if we want a vertical reviewing pane or a horizontal. Now I'm going to say vertical. And it opens up this pane at the side and it's going to list out all of the different changes. So if I want to jump to a specific change, I can simply click and it's going to jump me to that part of the document. Notice here we also have a little refresh reviewing pane button. So if more track changes are made, we can simply click this button and it will update with the latest changes. So the reviewing pane can be quite useful if you want to navigate through the document by specific changes. So now if we're going through and reviewing these changes, I'm going to say that I want to show in balloons, comments and formatting, just so that I can see those comments. So this first one here, please change this word. So maybe I think, no, the word is fine as it is. What I can do is I can reject this change. So notice up on the review tab in the changes group, we have a couple of buttons, accept and reject. Now if I click the drop down, I can say reject and move to next, or I can reject all changes. So I'm going to say reject and move to next. So as soon as I click reject, notice that that comment attributed to that word has now disappeared because I haven't accepted that change. Let's see the next one. So this one, someone wants to delete the name out of this document. And yes, I'm pretty happy with that change. So once again, I can go to accept. I can accept the change, accept all changes. I can accept all changes and completely stop tracking, which is going to turn off track changes, or I can accept and move to next. So I'm going to say accept. That word has now been deleted from the original document. Do I want to accept this formatting change? Well, I'm going to say no. So let's reject and move to next. Do I want to accept or reject these comments just here? When I added bold formatting, it also added a comment. So I'm going to say reject and move to next, and the same for the next one. Do I want to accept the please add a website address text that was inserted? Well, yes, I do. So let's say accept and move to next. Does this paragraph need to be deleted? Well, yes, I think it does. Let's accept and move to next. And when it gets to the end of the document, it will circle back around to the beginning if you have any other changes that need to be accepted or rejected. So those are all of the changes that I made to this document. You can see I have some other things in here where I've made some changes to the table of contents. I'm just going to leave those because it's just formatting changes. Once I've finished, I can simply turn off track changes by clicking the top half of the button, pressing Ctrl-Shift-E, or I can even go down to the status bar and just toggle it off that way. Now notice that I still have my comments pane open at the side because I do have some other comments in here. So I'm just going to change show markup and let's say show all revisions inline just to get rid of that. So you have all of these options in here which can really help you track the different changes that are being made in a document when you're collaborating with other people, and then choose if you want to include those changes in the document or exclude them from the document. In this final lesson on track changes, I just want to show you some of the advanced options you have when it comes to changing your track changes settings. Now notice in the bottom corner of the tracking group, we have one of those little diagonal arrows. And this allows us to change our tracking options. So if we click this, it's going to open up the track changes options dialog box. And you can see in here, we have some of the items that we also have underneath the show markup option. So this is where we can specify exactly what we want to show. So do we want to show any comments that have been added? Do we want to show ink annotations? Do we want to show insertions and deletions or formatting? So on and so forth. So you can customize which of these items you're interested in. Now, I will say in general, I tend to leave these all selected so that I can see any changes that are being made. We can then specify our balloons again. So when we're looking at all markup view, do we want to show anything in balloons? Now my default here is to show nothing in balloons unless I specify. So I could make that specification just here, or I can do it from the tracking group on the ribbon underneath show markup. I can customize what I want to see in balloons. I can even choose what my default option is for the reviewing pane. So by default, I have my reviewing pane turned off. If I want to turn it on, I would again need to go to the reviewing pane option on the ribbon and turn it on. But if I want this to open by default, I can choose either vertical or horizontal. Now the important thing in here is advanced options. So let's take a look at what we have in here. Now we have a much bigger set of options in here, and this is really where we can control how our changes are represented in the document. So you can see here for markup, this is where we can determine how insertions look, how deletions look, how changing lines look, and how comments look. So for example, every time I insert something into the document, it's going to show as an underline. If I delete something, it's going to show as a strike through. If I change lines, it's going to show as an outside border. If I make a comment, it's going to show with my author initials. Now you can come in here and you can customize this. So for example, maybe I want insertions to show in bold instead of with an underline. So let's just make that change. What about deletions? Maybe I want, instead of a strike through, I want them to show with a double underline. And when we're talking about the color, Currently, I have mine set to by author. And what that means is that when the author changes, so if my colleague opens up this document, when they start to make changes, it's going to recognize that it's a different person using the document, and the changes will be in a different color. So if you want every person's changes to be a different color, then I would recommend that you set this to by author. Now, of course, you can come in here and pick a specific color. So maybe you want all of your changes to be in blue every single time. You can set that in here. Now, my recommendation is to always have by author set. If we move down to our next set of options, this is when we're dealing with moves. How do we want to deal with text that has been moved from one location to another? So currently, where it's been moved from shows a double strike through in a green color, where it's moved to a double underline in a green color. The same thing occurs for things like inserted, deleted, merged and split cells in tables. So if we're making lots of changes to our tables and moving things around, maybe deleting, these are the colors that you're going to see those changes in. And everything in here is customizable, so if you want to have different colors, you can definitely change that. So let's click on OK just here and OK again. So now that we've made those changes, let's just see those changes in action. So I'm going to turn on track changes again, and this time if I select something to delete, it's red with a double underline. If I insert something into here, so let's just say video, it's red but it's bold. So that corresponds to the changes that we've made. What about if I was to move this piece of text to the paragraph below? I'm just going to drag and drop, and you can see exactly what we get. The location where it's moved from is green with a strike through, and where we've moved to is green with a double underline. So don't forget to go in and review your advanced options. Now, the other thing that's worth noting here is this change username option. Now, this is going to jump you across to Word options and onto the general page. And the reason why it jumps you across here is because this is where you can see the information as to who the author is of this document or who owns this copy of Word. So in this case, that is me. Now, the reason why it's jumping you here is because this is who is considered to be the author of the track change at any given time. This is where it picks up the information. So therefore, if I send this document to somebody else, it's going to be their username and initials in their copy of Word, and so Word knows when you're using track changes that this is a different author, and it knows to use a different color. So just be aware of that as well. But that's pretty much how track changes works, how you can add them to a document, how you can change the way you're viewing the markup, how you can accept and reject changes, and also how you can change your track change settings. Comments are another way that we can mark up a document and communicate with other users. Comments allow you to review a document, and if you find a piece of text or maybe a paragraph or an image or something you want to make a comment about, you can add that into the document. You can also choose how comments are displayed in your document, so whether you want them very obvious or whether you want to make them a little bit more discreet. And of course, once you've added a comment, other people can reply to your comment, so you can effectively have a conversation thread within a document, and you can do things like resolve the comment, delete the comment, so on and so forth. You can even navigate through a document by the comments only. So let's take a look at how they work, because this is pretty straightforward. So let's say that I want to make a comment about this line here, refer to the Microsoft website. So I'm going to select the text, and then on the Review tab, we have a New Comment button. So let's click it, and this is where we can insert our comment. So maybe I want to say to the team, is this really needed at this stage? Now notice when I clicked on New Comment, it opened up the reviewing pane on the left-hand side. Now, it might be that you're fine with that, or maybe you want to have your comments showing in bubbles as opposed to in the pane. So remember, if we go back to the tracking group This is where we can turn on our balloons for all revisions. So if I show this, I'm going to get the comment over here as opposed to in the revisions pane. So I'll leave it up to you as to which format you prefer. I actually really like having them over on the right hand side. I find them a little bit easier to manage. Another thing that's also helpful when you have them displayed in balloons is that other people can reply or resolve this comment. So if this is a document that's going backwards and forwards between different team members, you might find that one comment ends up with multiple different replies. And this is what we call a threaded conversation. You can have the author at the top and then have numerous different replies to the comment underneath. So maybe the result of this conversation that we've had is that we actually don't really need a reference to the Microsoft website at this point in the document. So what I would probably do then is click on Resolve, and that comment is effectively closed. Now notice we can still see the comment there, it's just not an active comment. If I want to delete the comment in full, I would need to select the piece of text, or I can select the comment, click on the delete button, and then choose delete to get rid of that comment. Now I'm going to go down to here and I'm going to add another new comment, and I'm going to say, please add the Microsoft website address here. I'm going to go a bit further down in my document and let's add something else. Let's go for new comment. Please review this paragraph. Maybe I want to go a bit further down and maybe I want to say here, please update link. Something like that. So I just carry on going through my document, adding comments where I see necessary. Another thing you can do is you can navigate through your document using the comments. So once again, up in the comments group, we have previous and next. So I can click on next, it's going to jump me to the next comment it finds, click on next again to go to the next one, so on and so forth. Now a question I get asked fairly frequently in relation to comments is, can you print comments? Well, the short answer is yes, you can. And when we get on to talking about printing, I'll show you exactly how you can set that up so that if you want to print out any comments that you've added, you can do exactly that.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To see the full course that this video came from, click over there. And click over there to see more videos from Simon Says It.